This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure I remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you please give us a 5-star rating or a nice review, very appreciated, very helpful. See if you guys like, if you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And as will be customary for the next, for the next 3 Sundays, Mondays, depending on how, well, maybe longer, because again, there's not really a whole lot of new that's live, at least, in terms of sports that's coming up. There's a lot of discussion about the next 2 parts of the Michael Jordan doc, episodes, I guess parts 3 and 4, that premiered on Sunday night. You guys are hearing this Monday, but on Sunday night, and these were the Rodman / Bad Boys / Doug and Phil Collins episodes, I guess you could say. I know the first episode, episode 3, started with featured Rodman. And if you haven't watched already, first off, don't know why you haven't, don't know what you're doing. No judgment here, but if you haven't watched, then skip ahead 2 segments, because it's what I'm going to be talking about for the next 20 plus minutes. So if you want to watch it for yourself without me telling you what's mainly in it, then like I said, skip ahead. But for those of you that have watched it, we can discuss. And the 3rd episode starts with the infamous... No, did it? No, take that back. Hold on, no, wait. When was the Vegas? Hold on. The Vegas story, was that to close? Oh, no. The Vegas story was to close episode 3, going into episode 4. Alright, so I was getting ahead of myself there. Oh, yeah, okay, so episode 3, that was them talking about Doug Collins. Doug Collins and what he helped bring to the team. And also, I think this is around when... No, I think this episode they touched a little bit on Scotty coming back. It all, against this back-to-back, it's hard to remember exactly which part was in which. But I know the 3rd episode definitely, or the first episode on Sunday, talked about Doug Collins, and I did not realize just how vital, you could say, Doug Collins was to Michael Jordan's success. Now, again, no one person is more important than Michael Jordan himself in terms of making himself great, but you could see that there was a clear change and a clear evolution in his game once Doug Collins came in. Now, some of that may be because Doug Collins force-fed him the ball, made sure that whatever they could, or whenever they could, they give the ball to Michael. Almost a little bit of the... I mean, I don't want to say for certain, because again, it was the 80s. I wasn't alive, so I don't know for a fact. But it sounds a little bit similar to if you ever watched The Fresh Prince, the Bel Air offense, get the ball to Will. Not exactly going to say it was that far, but I mean, he did say I don't know if this was after it might have been after the Cavs shot, the press conference interview bit they show where they asked him what the play was, and it said to give the ball to Michael and everyone get the bleep out of the way. I mean, that's what it sounds like the Doug Collins era Bulls were like, and that's part of the reason why, or I would imagine that's part of the reason why Michael was so fond of him to this day. Which, then again, I don't want to. It's not just because he got on the ball, but it was clear that that whatever magic, I don't know if magic's the right word, but whatever he was selling, Jordan was buying. You could put it that way. Whatever it was, whatever ideas, whatever philosophies, what have you, Jordan bought in all the way, and that led him to, again, great seasons during those years. I mean, those were his highest scoring seasons came during that stretch when Doug Collins was the coach. So yeah, I think so. He came in 86, 87, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because that was the first. This was a cool moment actually because that was Doug Collins' first game. He was playing the Knicks in the Garden. Just one of many moments in which great players have had great moments in the Garden that weren't Knicks players. Shame. But it is what it is at this point. I mean, Knicks fans should expect it. But yeah, he had 50 in Doug Collins' first game, and it was just funny because you could see in the documentary, like, clearly he was a sweater because there were multiple cutaways of him sweating through shirts. And then he was talking about, like, how nervous he was, blah, blah, and then, like, Jordan came up to him, gave him a cup of water, and was like, don't worry, I'm not going to let you lose your first game. And I think he said he scored, like 10, like, the last 10 points or something like that. And, again, he had 50 on the night. So that was just kind of symbolic of, like, their relationship was like, hey, look, if you have faith in me, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that I do right by you. But yeah, no, his best scoring season, I'm not gonna say his best overall season, though one of his best if not his best overall season did come in this time. But so yeah, so in 86-87 he averaged 37 points, 87-88 he averaged 35, 88-89 he averaged 32.5. And then 89-90 he averaged 33.6, but then he never had an average that high again. I mean, he still averages in the 30s basically every year, but the year he came, but except for a couple. But I mean, he never averaged less than 28 in like a full season. He averaged 22 the year that he played like 18 games with like the foot. But any game he played majority of the seasons before the Wizards, obviously, he didn't average below 28, I should say, but. Is that his best scoring years in terms of points per game came in those seasons. But I'm trying to think. There was the one year that he was talking about where he basically won like every major award at the same time. All right, so this was 87-88. So that was the first year that they were no, it was the second year that they were together. Excuse me. Second year that they were together. He won All-Star Game MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, I think was, All Defensive Team, First Team, All NBA First Team. I think, what else? I think he led the league in, like, steals. If I could find it. It's hard to find these things. Led the league in steals that year. Like I said, led the league in scoring that year. It's one of the overall, probably one of the best single seasons. You guys, he averaged, 35? Yeah, he averaged 35. 3.2 steals, 1.6 blocks, 5.9 assists, 5.5 rebounds, shot 84% from the free throw line, threes or whatever, because he didn't really shoot them, and shot 53% from the field. 53.5% from the field. All while playing 40 minutes a night and not missing a game. Easily, and I think Doug Collins alluded to this, but easily one of the single greatest statistical seasons you could argue in the history of the sport. Just in terms of what the numbers he put up, and then also, like I said, what he won during that year to, like I said, win MVP, All-Star Game MVP. Oh, he won the dunk contest too. Just for good measure. I mean, he didn't really even need it, but just for good measure. So MVP, All-Star Game MVP, dunk contest champion, Defensive Player of the Year, led the league in steals, first team All NBA, first team All Defense, and was a scoring leader that season. That's what I'm saying. That's just, and so you could see that the bringing Doug Collins in was obviously vital into making Michael Jordan who he turned out to be. Like I said, not gonna say that he couldn't have become that without him, but it was clear that once Doug Collins came in, he was put on the right path. So that was an interesting aspect of it was just how vital Doug Collins was. Because I didn't realize that. You hear about Doug Collins. I knew about Doug Collins being the coach, I should say, but I didn't know exactly how important he was. And obviously, this kind of helped demonstrate that. And also, it was just a shame what happened to the Cavs, or what was shown to happen to the Cavs in that in that part of the doc. That was another big moment, of just like them trying to overcome things. Because obviously, until they won their first championship, they had some people they had to get through, and then that Cavs and that final shot, which that was funny. Ron Harper was talking about how he wanted to be the guy to guard Mike, and the coach was like, "Nah, we're gonna put Greg Elo on him." And you could just tell. I mean, even I guess looking back on him, but just like his reaction to it was like, "Yeah, no, it's not gonna go well." And obviously, it didn't go well. That's how you get the shot. And it was, and also the funny thing was that obviously, well, not obviously, but basically everyone had picked them to lose that series because, again, the Cavs were a good team at the time, and the Bulls still hadn't been able to overcome anything yet. They had always kind of failed in the playoffs. That was like their MO at that point. So all of them had picked them to lose at different points of time. So Game 5 comes up and he goes up to three separate media members, one of which had picked them to lose, get swept. One of them who had picked them to lose in 4, and one that had picked them to lose in 5. And he came up to the first one, was like, "We took care of you." Second one, "We took care of you." And the third one, "We're going to take care of you today." So that was just funny. And then he talked about like how important the win was, even though they gave up a backdoor cut to Greg Elo for an easy layup. To even force them to need that shot is beyond me. But whatever. But yeah, it was just funny just how much that moment meant to him, just to finally get over that hump and just finally be able to put all the people that were against him, you could say, like behind him. But yeah, it was again, if you're a Cavs fan or a Cleveland sports fan, tough to relive. I think it was Mark Price tweeted out that he was happy that episode 3 was over, so you can finally enjoy the doc again, because obviously, but he was a part of that team, so that's tough to relive from his perspective. But it was just funny. But yes, that was a big part of the doc, just them being able to overcome things. And the last thing they had to overcome was the Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, and obviously Dennis Rodman was tied into that. Hearing a little bit more about Rodman's backstory and kind of there's a 30 for 30 out on him. That's pretty interesting. I think I watched it, but I know I've seen bits and pieces of it. So, he's an interesting guy, so that's not surprising. But just hearing about him and then hearing about just like, again, how much respect Michael and Scotty and Phil all have for him is just impressive, just because Michael doesn't. I feel like it'd be hard to get his respect, and if you have it, then that's a big testament to you as a player, or as a coach, or as a whoever, if you can get his respect. And obviously Dennis had that respect just because he was, even though he was a little bit out there, his mind was great. And I know they were talking when he was doing a little talking about the art of rebounding. It was like one of those, like, I forget what movie it is, where like the guy's like crunching all the numbers on the board or whatever. I'm not a big movie guy, so I should know that, but I don't. Like one of those like Rain Man type of things, where just like you're seeing everything like kind of compute in their head, and they're kind of describing. It's like, I have no idea what's going on, but like it's amazing, like what I'm listening to. So that's what that. So it was funny to hear him break down that, and obviously when you have a guy that can get 20 rebound games like it was nothing, you're not surprised that he was able to break it down and just got the art of it, and like the way the ball comes off the rim. If it's going to be here, I'm like, I got to be there. If this guy shoots it like this, so when he puts a shot up, I got to make sure I'm here. It was pretty impressive. But yeah, so that was interesting to hear. And then obviously, like I said, he was a part of that Bad Boys Piston team that had the infamous Jordan rules, which I didn't read the Jordan rules book, but I maybe I might have missed it, but I think this is one of the first times I actually officially heard what the actual Jordan rules, quote unquote, were, and they broke it down as such. Rule number 1 was, first off, the main point was just like, don't let him get in the air, because obviously once he's in the air, one, you can't really foul him without like causing serious injury, and you don't want to do that. But he's magical up there, so you want to make sure he's on the ground. So I know they tried to force him to the elbow, because obviously there's more people there. It's easier to defend him that way. Then if you're out on you by yourself, if he's up top, make him drive left. Again, his offhand. And then if he's in the low post, double team him from the top, and try to whatever you try to make sure he doesn't go baseline. And then, long story short, just beat him up whenever you could. Like, if he goes up, make sure you hit him. Basically, that's what it was, and it was interesting to see. And again, this is not the first time I've seen this, or any of us have seen this, but it's just interesting to relive again just how much he had to get through, or like how much of a pounding he took during those Bad Boys years, and I could see why many people hated them, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's like the style of play that you would think of a team that you would think would be implemented by a team that is like less talented, where you got to do, all right, I know I'm not as talented as you, I'm not as good as you, so I got to resort to different tactics in order to beat you. Granted, they were winning, so you can't really say that they were a bad team, but you could. And again, they had like Hall of Fame caliber players, so it's not like they were without talent, but those kind of tactics were usually are reserved for guys that are like, all right, I'm not as good as you, but there are things I can do to even the playing field, and this was it. If I just get you out of your game by fouling you whenever I can, then that brings you down to my level, and then from there, once we're even, then all right, then you've already lost, basically. Because once I get you out of your game, then I'm good, because my game is still the same. It was interesting to hear him go through that and have to like experience that. Again, just like how that was like really like the last big thing he had to overcome, and then once he got past that, then obviously the rest is history. But it was just always interesting to see, and then obviously interesting to hear what the official Jordan rules were from like the Pistons. I think it was the Pistons assistant coach at the time. But then assistant coach and the players themselves, just to be like, all right, this is actually what they were. These were our rules for when we played Jordan, and that's in and of itself is impressive. I know there's still a lot of Jordan versus LeBron debates that go on during these things and after these, during and after this documentary, which is like whatever at this point. It's a futile debate. No one on either side is going to change their opinion. But I mean, if you're a pro Jordan guy, a team having to create legitimate rules of how to stop you seems like a check mark on your side of the argument. Just because, I mean, that's absurd. There have been many great players, but there's never been no Magic rules, no Bird rules, no Kareem rules, no Steph rules, no LeBron rules, no Kobe rules. The fact that they needed to legitimately develop and dedicate themselves to I mean, again, you have game plans against everybody, but like a set of rules that you had to have in order to be successful against this guy and like have it be named something is like, it's impressive. But I mean, like, we knew how impressive Jordan was before this. This isn't anything new in that regard, but again, from that perspective, it is very impressive. But yeah, so that was the majority of the first part. The second part, we get to talk about the fun little Rodman vacation, which was, I mean, that story was hilarious. And then, like I said, also just them finally getting over the hump, and what caused them to be able to get over the hump of the Pistons. And also kind of preview what could be, or what's going to be next in episodes 5 and 6. So we'll talk about that right after this break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, the second part, episode 4, I know that it starts, like I said, I've been wanting to talk about this, so it starts with the Vegas trip. I guess the last episode ended with them talking about, after Scotty came back from his hiatus due to injury and, like, trade demands and whatever, and he just kind of realized, like, yeah, no, it's not going to work, he's going to have to start playing. He comes back, and then Dennis Rodman, who had been the number 2 guy for Jordan and had been playing well after starting off a little bit slow, has started playing really well and helped the Bulls kind of hold it together that year until Scotty came back. When Scotty had come back, he realized that, like, oh, he's going to have to take a back seat again, which I mean, he may have, I mean, he understood, but I don't know how much he would have liked it at the time, because again, he was playing well in that second role, even though again he's not like the leading scorer or anything. He was just like the number 2 like name, and it was working out well for him. But once he came back, he decided that he needed a little vacation to Vegas, and that it was just funny to hear that story because just because like he comes to, like, Phil calls Jordan in and is like, hey, he needs a vacation, and like obviously, as you should, he was like very confused as to how he could need a vacation in the middle of, like, I think it was like January or whatever, sometime in the middle of the season. It's like needs like a vacation. You got to go to Vegas, which I mean, going to Vegas at any time probably is not a good idea if you're in the middle of like a basketball season. But definitely during the 90s, especially when you're Dennis Rodman, who is a bit of a wild card, to say the least. So yeah, they said they gave him 48 hours. Obviously, he didn't make it. He didn't come back in those 48 hours. Dennis seemed to enjoy himself, though. But just the funny part is, like, like Jordan has to come get him in Vegas, though. I mean, don't know how long he was there for Vegas, because, you know, Jordan does like to gamble. I imagine he got there at least a little bit early, so he could do that. That would seem reasonable. No, not that it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying I would be shocked if Jordan just came to Vegas to get Dennis out of his hotel room. It seems like a wasted trip for me. But yes, he comes in, he knocks on the door. Apparently, like, Carmen Electra's there because that's who he was dating at the time. She didn't want to be seen like this. She's like hiding behind the couch or whatever, and like he has to come and like snatch him out of the bed and like drag him to practice. And I think it was that day they showed footage of like Dennis Rodman was like at practice, like with a t-shirt and like pajama pants on, while everyone else was like obviously in normal practice attire. And it was just funny, just having that's what they had to do to make sure that Dennis was fine for the whole season. And then even with that, I think the next day or like one of the days after they're practicing, and they're doing like sprints. And obviously, I guess maybe for punishment, maybe just for cardio, who knows. But they're doing like I don't know if you've done it, but I know I used to do it in gym class. I've done it in like different sports just for like, again, like cardio. Like they're Indian runs where just like you're in a line and like the person in charge like blows the whistle and the person in the back has to sprint to the front and you just like keep going until like I guess everyone goes through or whatever, and like the person in the front sets the pace, so you go as fast or as slow as that person goes. So they had all decided that like since this was mainly Dennis's punishment, like we're not going to sprint this like this. So he was going to take it nice and slow. And then by the time it was Dennis's turn to go from the back to the front, like he who, again, had been in Vegas for like 3 or 4 days, hadn't really done anything sports related, like sprints to the front and then proceeds to like sprint around the court. And then it says he took them 4 laps to catch up to him. Like that's... Again, because Dennis, he was just wired differently. Like he could be gone for 4 days and be like completely fine, while as opposed to other guys go on a partying binge for 4 days in Vegas and they're incapacitated for a week. And Dennis could do it in 4 days and come back and still be in peak physical form and better suited to do anything athletic than the rest of the team, who again had been practicing and playing. I think he only missed like 2 games during that time, which is, again, impressive in and of itself. But it was just like funny just to hear more about how different Dennis was, because obviously different is not a bad thing. So that was funny to hear. And then so that was that. They talked a little bit about Phil's backstory and how he got into coaching and his playing time with the Knicks. Last time Knicks were good. All that fun stuff. But also it was just, again, I didn't know exactly. I knew Phil Jackson was the coach when they had all that success, but I didn't know exactly how he became the coach. But it was kind of insightful, at least for me, to hear about how basically the only reason why he got the coaching job was because Doug Collins just like wouldn't institute the triangle. And like obviously Phil became famous for it, and though I think it was another assistant coach, Tex Winter, who was trying to introduce it to Doug, and Doug was like, no, we're not doing that. We're doing again, give the ball to Michael offense, the more, I guess, what you would call ISO ball in this day and age. But that's what they were going with, and again, obviously, as we discussed, it didn't really work against the team like the Pistons, who were just going to beat up Michael, and if he's your main source of offense, then you're going to struggle if he can't really get going. So then they were trying to implement the triangle, or Tex were trying to implement it, and then obviously Doug, like, I guess at one point Doug Collins just like went off and was like, no, we're not doing it, and then like demoted Doug and had him just like, I mean, not demoted Tex and just had him like off to the side, not really doing anything coaching wise. And then that led to Jerry Krause firing him, even though they had reached the conference finals the year before. Then they bring, like I said, they bring Phil in. He tries to institute the triangle. MJ's not hearing it. And at least at first. But then, again, you find out that it's more useful because it gets everyone involved and everyone's important, and then thus you have to pay attention to everybody. If you're just doing like I said, the Bel Air offense, then Bel Air Academy offense, then it's easy to defend because you don't got to worry about one guy. If you got to worry about all like 3-4 other guys on the court, then it makes you hard to defend. And that's, I guess, what they wanted, and that's what Jerry Krause was trying to institute, that's what Tex Winter was trying to institute, and that's what Phil Jackson was able to bring to the team, plus obviously the managing of the Eagles and stuff like that. He was good with that. So that was interesting, and it was also interesting just how much Isaiah, well, I guess you could say the Bulls as a whole, and the Pistons, for the most part, depending on who it is, still hate each other. Because that was clear and evident in the documentary, was how much, I know Horace Grant had probably the quote of the night, calling them straight up B words for walking off the court early, in the clinching game for that the Bulls won in order to get to their first finals. And I mean, fair assessment. I'm not the biggest, like, oh, rah-rah, sportsmanship, we need to all shake hands, blah, blah, blah. But I'm also, like, against walking off the court before the game's over. Like, if you want to walk off the court after the game's over, you don't want to shake hands, I'm not one of those people that gets worked up over it. It is what it is. We're grown, at least at that age, like, you're grown men. It's like, they're not happy they won. There shouldn't be any reason for it. I still found it annoying even in high school where you were, like, forced to go through, like, a handshake line. And I'm just like, I don't like these people that much. Especially if you lose. It's like, what, you have to go shake every person's hand on the team and the coaches? Like, all right, come on. We don't need to do all that. So I definitely am against that as a professional. If you want to do it, great. If you don't, more power to you. I've never been one to judge the team. But if you decide to leave before you lose because you can't handle losing, then that's a completely separate story. Like I said, I understand where Horst was coming from with his comments. Because, again, that was definitely not what I would have done. You can lose, and like I said, you can just not shake hands. It is what it is. But don't, like, just walk off the court in the middle of the thing. So it's funny. It's still funny just to see how much Isaiah and Mike, like, how long their beef is. Because a person who likes to hold fast on things that he believes in, holding on to a beef for, what? I guess this was like early, like mid-80s to 90s, so say like 1990, at the very least. We are now, 30 years removed? Yeah, we're now 30 years removed from that, and you can tell you still don't like each other to this day. I love it, honestly. I really do. I love me a good beef. Doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter not sport. Yeah, it doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the medium of entertainment, rap beefs. I wish there were really just beefs only happen in rap. I guess maybe like R&B beefs. I don't know about the country music beefs. I know. I guess there's like some pop stars here and they don't really like each other. But yeah, I'm always down for a good beef. So seeing the Jordan and Isaiah dynamic was fun. It was just another interesting aspect was they had Isaiah talking about like the thought process and like him saying like, oh, if I knew what I knew now, or the backlash from them walking off the court, I wouldn't have done it, blah, blah, blah. Even though that's what the Celtics did to us, because the Celtics walked off the court while a player was shooting a free throw. Though I think somebody came out on Twitter that was associated with the Celtics at that time and said that they did it for security reasons because like everyone watched the floor and they didn't want the players involved in that. A bunch of he said, she said. We don't know about that. But they were going to play it for Mike or MJ, and he was like, he basically described and laid out everything Isaiah was going to say before it happened, and then that's basically how it went down. You could tell how annoyed he was the entire time while I was listening to him talk. So yeah, it's just I respect a good beef. Yeah, so that was funny. That was an interesting part, and that was a very big part. There was another meme that came out of that, just like of him watching from like the iPad Isaiah talk. So. It's not the crying meme, but it's another solid one. So yeah, you got that. And then also, I guess like another integral part of this part of the documentary was obviously the work that Jordan put into getting himself stronger, working with the trainer, beefing himself up, trying to make sure his teammates were all on the same page, making sure they get stronger, making sure they're working throughout the offseason, and also, I guess, finally being willing to trust his teammates, because I think it was after they beat them when they were playing the Lakers, I think it was, what was it, like Game 5? That Game 5 where Paxson had, like, a bunch of points and had, like, a really good game, and that was, I guess, the first part of Michael being able to be like, all right, I don't have to do everything myself. I can, if I want to, and I need to, or the team needs me to, but, like, they are, like, John Paxson can do his thing. Scotty can do his thing. I can pass it again to John Paxson to hit the game-winning shot in a finals game. I can pass it to Steve Kerr for him to hit the game-winning shot. I can count on guys like Horace Grant or whoever to do their job. I guess Kukoc, once he came over after, they did the whole thing during the Olympics, which was unfortunate for Kukoc. But, hey, it worked out for the Bulls. So, yeah, so you can count on these guys to do their job and play their role, and when they need to step up, step up. So that was a big part of that, and obviously Phil was a big part of making sure that he understood that, and that was the whole point of the triangle, is that you have a 3-person triangle at all times, no matter where the ball is, and the other 2 guys are still moving around or being involved in some way. so that everyone, like I said, everyone can be involved and do their thing. But also, like I said, Jordan doesn't have to do everything. So that was interesting. Actually, just like the evolution of Jordan becoming a player that would at least believe and trust in his teammates to a degree. Again, when in doubt, Jordan believes he can do it. But as you see later on in different finals, he trusts his guys to make the shot when the time comes. So that was another interesting evolution for me. And then it kind of ends off talking about how, for whatever reason, Jerry Krause felt the need when they were going to play Utah for the first time, or I think one of the first times, I believe it was the first time, in 97-98, talking about how the more rumors about the Jordan and Phil Jackson stuff, and about how if Phil's not going to be there, MJ's not going to be there, and Krause talking about, like, yeah, I want MJ back, but, like, he got to be willing to play for another coach, blah, blah, blah. And again, it's hard because Krause isn't here to defend himself. But it's just a shame that, like, mainly the owner decided to decide with the GM instead of the coach and player that had done everything. Again, the GM deserves the credit for picking the coach and signing the players and drafting the players and what have you. But at the end of the day, he's not on the court doing the stuff that's winning the games. Again, the GM gets credit for putting the team together, but the players and coaches, I always feel like, deserve more of the credit because they're the ones actually out there influencing and doing things. If you could put all the pieces together, but if you don't have somebody that can, you can go to a store and buy all the ingredients, but if you don't have somebody that knows how to put it together, it's not going to come out good. And that's what GMs are. They're the people they're like your Instacart people, if you're using that during the pandemic. They can be the guy that go out and get you get you the groceries, but you got to be able to make them. And if you can't, then obviously the dish does not come out well. And, like, I think it's just crazy that they decided to side with the GM instead of the owner in this case, or instead of the players and coaches in this case. But it's just, it's unfortunate, and that's what this documentary is trying to display. Also, the last thing was that it was just funny how Jordan said that beating the Bulls was better than beating the Lakers, which, I guess is fair. If you've been facing the same team, 4 years in a row, always get eliminated by them, and then you finally be able to beat them, at that point you've already won. Granted, they still need to win the championship, but it made winning the championship that much easier because you're like, all right, we can get through that, then we can handle an older Lakers team. And they clearly made quick work of them, beating them in 5. So, yeah, should be interesting. The next 2 parts, we're going to talk a little bit about, I believe they showed some previews. They're going to dive into the aura of Mike and, like, what it meant to, like, be like him. Because obviously that was the big part of his thing. Everybody wanted to be like Mike, and just kind of the attention he drew, and just like how it became like a worldwide phenomenon. And then also kind of the turmoil of, I guess, the Horace Grant exit, and then some of the leaks that had come out about the team during that last year, and about, I guess, some of their inner dealings with the team. We don't know exactly what they are, but in Horace Grant, they showed a little clip of him defending himself, but it'll be interesting to see. I know it sounded like the way he left was not great. I thought I remember him talking about in the Penny and Shaq 30 for 30, just how happy he was to beat the Bulls during that one playoff run when they ended up going to the finals, and obviously lost the Rockets. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see that, just to see how much he gives it up, because, like I said, he was very honest and forthright about the Pistons. I would expect him to be no different talking about the Bulls, especially with the way things ended there. So that'd be interesting to hear from Horace himself. But yeah, so it should be interesting. Advise you all to tune in. If you don't, can't know why you don't tune in. But again, it's a very good documentary. Only 4 parts in. Still got 6 more parts to go. The last 2 which are still being edited. We have no one has any idea how those are going to turn out. I don't even think Jordan himself knows how they're going to turn out as of yet. So I said, imagine they're going to be, if they're putting this much effort into it, you would think it'd be pretty good. So again, we'll have to wait and see. Got a couple more weeks, but yeah, should be interesting. But after this break, we're gonna come back and we'll discuss the big event of the weekend, the NFL Draft. Kind of just recap it, talk about some of my favorite drafts from different teams, my favorite picks, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay right there.
I want to talk to you guys about this amazing product I've been using lately called Hydrant. If you're like me and you want to kick the coffee habit, but you're worried about your energy levels depleting, to avoid the morning sluggishness and that midday slump, you need to make sure you're hydrated. It's super important. And that's where I've been using Hydrant. And for 25% off your first order, you can go to drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC at checkout. Hydrant is basically flavored electrolyte packets you mix directly into your water to make hydrating your body easy and delicious. And what I love about Hydrant, it's backed by research. The formula was developed by Oxford scientists to provide perfectly balanced, efficient hydration. Again, that's drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC for 25% off your first order. Another really cool thing about Hydrant, there's no synthetic colors or artificial sweeteners. The formula is vegan and you can choose between 3 different flavors or a variety pack. So for all my vegan friendly fellows out there, this one's for you. Again, this is drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, NFL Draft. If you saw the viewing numbers, you would understand why the NFL decided not to postpone it, and boy am I happy they didn't, because again, just gave us something to look forward to. And again, being... the beauty of it is that since it's over 3 days, it's not just like a one-day thing, and it's over. It's like, all right, you have time to go over Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that was enjoyable. There was a lot of interesting picks, some, to say the least, which we'll get into some of the more interesting and surprising and draft classes and decisions and what have you in the next segment. But there were quite a few drafts from teams that I personally enjoyed. And like I've said in my first, when I talked about this on Thursday, or I guess, well, you guys will talk about Thursday, you guys heard it Friday. I don't like giving out draft grades. Well, one, because I'm not like a scout. I don't know all these people. I've heard the names, heard names of a lot of them, because I watch a lot of college football, but I haven't, like, scouted all these guys, so it's hard for me to like give a grade on like how good or how bad a draft class is. Plus, grading a draft class is dumb. At this point, to me, again, everyone teach their own, but it just doesn't make any sense because you don't know you're grading them based on where you think they should be picked relative to like whatever big board you care about, basically. And that's really how all these things go down. It's like, all right, you look to see, all right, where was this player ranked on the board? Where did he end up getting picked? All right, I think it's a great pick. Or this person went too high, I think it's a bad pick. It's like, at the end of the day, if you're a team, and I think that's another thing that I things people overvalue is I talk about a little bit about how people overvalue the mock draft, because again, people go earlier or later than when they would pick in whatever mock draft you do yourself, or you read, or you watch, or what have you. The NFL draft is unpredictable, and obviously, again, the not internet, but like the scouts that do this or analysts that do this on TV have different ideals and big boards than the actual teams. Plus, that they're just doing an overall. They're not scouting based on need or fit. So they're just doing an overall, like, these are my overall best quarterbacks, or my overall best receivers, or best running backs, or best corners, or whatever. But teams don't do it like that from what I've heard, and the way it would make sense to me is they're doing it based on their team needs and their fit. So, like, if I run a specific scheme, like I mentioned on Friday for you guys, Brandon Ayuk was Kyle Shanahan's favorite receiver, and it makes sense because he's very good with yards after the catch. That's what they need. But obviously, again, maybe, one point was that was interesting to do the fact that CeeDee Lamb's also very good after the catch, and many people would argue he's the best receiver in the class, but again, to each his own. But that was just interesting that he was his favorite receiver, where he's at best, most receivers like wide receiver 5 or 6, if you listen to most of these like scouts or analysts or look at their mock draft or whatever, or their big boards, he's not going to be that high. But yeah, so just interesting. That's what I said. I don't like grading things. You don't know. You haven't played it down in the NFL yet. A lot of drafts that look good on paper don't end up panning out. Some drafts that look bad on paper end up being excellent. And then, again, if you have a draft class, if you have 3 to 4, which is probably high, but if you have 3 to 4 contributors on your team in 2 to 3 years, that's a good draft. Doesn't matter where they were picked or whatever. If you get contributors, 3 to 4 of them, whether they're starters, all pros, just on your team, whatever. If you can get that out of each draft class, then you're doing something good. Some will have more, some will have less, but like I said, it's hard to project that this early on when you have no idea how these guys are going to pan out in the NFL. But with that said, one of my, at least, like I said, favorite draft classes that I liked was the Broncos, just because they are going all in on finding out how good Drew Lock is. And I think that's important. When you have a young quarterback, you need to surround him, in my opinion, surround him with as many weapons as you can, just to find out, is he the guy or not? Because you would rather know sooner than later if he's the guy, and if you don't have the weapons, it's hard to say for certain if he's the guy. Because, very few people are capable of just turning anyone into stars. It's not a thing, especially not early on. That's not a thing most quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, are able to do right away. Like, you could have a young corner make an impact, you can have a young pass rusher, maybe a young receiver, depending, but it's hard for a young quarterback to make an impact without the supporting cast, whether that's a good offensive line, a good running back, good receivers, a good defense, whatever that is. It's hard for them to, for you to be able to tell how good they are without those things around them. So the Browns are going all in on that. They drafted Jerry Jeudy in the first round. They doubled up the receiver, went KJ Hamler in the second round, who, though, is a little bit smaller. May have some job issues when you have Jerry Jeudy, who's not that tall, but at least like 6 feet, I believe. Then Courtland Sutton, who's a big receiver. Adding Jerry Jeudy, adding KJ Hamler to bring some juice to that offense. Not that Sutton and Jeudy don't have juice of their own, but obviously Hamler is one of the more electrifying playmakers in this draft. Again, smaller, but he makes up for that with the speed and the elusiveness and the agility and, like I said, the big playability. You can get past the smaller frame, if you will. So yes, you get those 2 picks back to back. Great start to the draft. And then they go and get another corner. I know they went out and got AJ Bouye. They traded for him, not in free agency. They traded for him, but I know they lost Chris Harris. They're going to need more help on the outside. They get a corner from Iowa, who, we'll see how it goes. I know he's a bigger guy, but see how it goes. And I know Vic Fangio's, he's a good defensive coach, so I feel like I have faith in him to help with that. They drafted a center, or an interior offensive lineman. I don't know exactly where he's going to play. I don't follow the Broncos extensively, but again, that's another. As much as weapons are nice, having good offensive line is just as good. So they need help with that. They added in another tight end. They didn't really need one because they had Noah Fant. But just Alberto, who was at Mizzou with Drew Lock, so reunite him with that. But also, again, it gives you another option because why not have, if you have one good, why not have more good things? I understand, you have one good tight end, that's great, but just all right, just having 2 good tight ends, make sure offense more versatile, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, obviously they had other picks here and there. Those ones throwing picks with those were kind of want to stand out. I know they got speedster late in Tyree Cleveland. They got Justin Strong. I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, but it was a linebacker from Wake Forest, who a lot of people were high on, that kind of fell, mainly because he's not that athletic, and he's also going to be 24, coming off of an injury, but when he played, he was good. But yes, that kind of hurt him. And then the pass rusher from North Dakota State, Tuska, I don't know, was very productive in his last year, compiling 13.5 sacks and 19 tackles for loss. So, again, you never know. It's a 7th round flyer, but a lot of people were high on him. So, that was a good draft, in my opinion. Who else had a good draft? I liked the Ravens draft also, just because of, well, not because of the Patrick Queen pick, but that definitely helps. That's kind of what they needed, calling him Baby Ray Lewis. And we'll see how that goes. But they drafted him. They drafted J.K. Dobbins. They need J.K. Dobbins, not at all. But, I mean, why not get a good running back when you can? I understand they have Ingram, they have Justice Hill, they have Gus Edwards. But, I mean, J.K. Dobbins could turn out to be better than those guys. And, I mean, I guess we'll see. The Ravens normally have good drafts, so I'm going to trust them on that. And I don't think Mark Ingram's not going to be around forever. Justice Hill was like, a 4th round pick. Gus Edwards was undrafted free agent. So it's not like they have high capital invested in these guys. But yeah, J.K. Dobbins might be the better than both of them, so that makes sense. Drafted defensive tackle, helped beef that up. Drafted a receiver that I liked, Devin Duvernay, slot guy out of Texas. Caught everything. Has, again, not KJ Hamler level explosiveness, but darn near close. He's still a fast guy. Can, like I said, catches everything, can be dynamic out of the slot, and they need more help from their wide receiver position for Lamar, so appreciate that. Double dip the receiver later on, got James Prochi? I was pronouncing it Procise, but I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce it. But it could be. But yeah, the receiver from SMU, who caught basically everything, was SMU's mainly their passing attack. And again, just another guy who, when you have a receiving core that struggled last year, you kind of got to go out and try to find ways to improve it. I know they got Hollywood Brown last year, but outside of that, didn't really get a whole lot from their receiver position. Mainly just the tight ends. So, they needed some help at the receiver position, went out and got it. We'll see how it works out, but at least on paper, those are good names. Added some O-line depth. Like I said, getting Patrick Queen to be quote-unquote Baby Ray Lewis was very good for them, in my opinion. I mean, the Bengals had a great draft, but it's easy. I would say it's easy to have a great draft from the top of when you have the first pick in every round, but it definitely doesn't hurt. But yeah, I mean, getting Joe Burrow, great. Getting T. Higgins in the second round, very good. Could very well replace A.J. Green in a year, just as that big body guy. They can get big plays. Compliments like Tyler Boyd well. So, that works. Revamped their entire linebacking core with Logan Wilson, a linebacker I like. Akeem Davis-Gaither is another linebacker that I like, though he has some injury concerns, so I understood why he fell. And then Marcus Bailey, I think he's from, where was he from? He's from Purdue. I think he had some injuries. He's been banged up a lot in terms of like torn ACLs and like injury and other surgeries. But he would be a good pick if he weren't always hurt. So if you can hope he can straighten that out, then you'll be fine. But again, 7th round pick, you're taking a flyer on that. But again, their defense needed help, and they were just like, all right, we're just going to completely revamp this linebacking core, and then that's a start. So I like that. On the NFC side of things, obviously teams like the Cowboys. I don't like praising the Cowboys but I mean it's hard not to for them. I mean they got when you get CeeDee Lamb in the draft, the number one receiver at 17 just falls into your lap. Hard not to like that. Also came back and drafted corner and Trayvon Diggs. I'm not the biggest Trayvon Diggs guy, but a lot of other people are high on him, and they needed another corner just because with Byron Jones leaving and some, not uncertainty, they have guys there, but just like you don't know how good they are, and Trayvon Diggs could end up being a starter for you. Plus his ball skills are very good, so I see why people like him, but I just know. I watched that LSU game. He was getting torched. Absolutely torched that entire game. Again, it was Jamar Chase. He may be the best receiver. Well, he was the best receiver in the country last year. It may very well be like a top 5 pick. So, not his fault, but again, those are the caliber of guys you're going to face in the NFL. Maybe not that great week in and week out, but darn near close. And like I said, it was a bad game for me to watch. If I was trying to look at him for the Eagles because they needed a corner, and I was like, no, that was the game. I was like, I'm out. Same thing happened with AJ Terrell in the championship game, but again, LSU. Maybe I just shouldn't have watched LSU games. But yeah, they got him. Then they got Neville Gallimore, a defensive tackle, which they needed up front, and a lot of people high on him. Got Tyler Bidash to potentially be their center of the future to make up for Travis Frederick retiring. That was good, and traded with the Eagles for that one, so that was an interesting choice. Got Bradley Anae, who I know people were down on because of the athletic testing, which is fair. Again, I can teach you technical stuff. I can't teach you athleticism, and the way the league's going, you need to be more athletic. Though he's a pass rusher, so it's not like he has to track down running backs or cover tight ends or anything. But again, there's certain athletic tools and gifts that you're born with or you're not, and that helps you make up for the lack of things another. Where even though supposedly he's a great hand technician, he was very productive at Utah, so whatever he had worked. But again, just the lack of athleticism definitely is scary. But yeah, so then their draft was very good, and I'm trying to think of one other team from the NFC that I liked. I mean, I didn't hate the Cardinals draft. I mean, I guess another team could be the Vikings, but again, when you have they have 15 picks or something, so it's hard to have a bad draft when you have that many picks. And even with that, I didn't love every pick they made. But Justin Jefferson for them makes sense. Jeff Gladney makes sense. They double dipped, got another corner, Cameron Densler out of Mississippi State, I believe. Beefed up the O-line a little bit. Had a couple linebackers. But again, you have 15 people. Half these people aren't even gonna make the roster. It is what it is. You just don't have that many spots open. Take that back. Not gonna talk about the Cardinals, who again I did like because they got Isaiah Simmons. And still got a tackle later on to help again protect Kyler Murray, which is desperately needed. And then they got Benjamin, who I think could be at least a decent running back later on. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about the Bucks because they got arguably the best tackle, depending on who you ask, in Tristan Wirfs at 13. Only had to move up a little bit. Then they drafted Antoine Winfield in the second round as safety, smaller, but another guy who's great ball skills and very productive in college, who I liked. And then double dipped on Minnesota guys, drafted Tyler Johnson. I know people were down on for whatever reason, but he was very good and dominated some of the best teams he played last year, which is what you would want to see out of a receiver. And again, they don't need him because he's at best the fourth option, at least right now. But he could. I mean, it's weird because Godwin's best in the slot, so you don't want to take Godwin out of the slot. But then you have two slots, so you can line Mike Evans up on outside wide, line up whoever else out wide, Godwin, Gronk, if you even wanted to, and then have Godwin in the slot and Ty Johnson in the slot. Bada bing, bada move, or maybe just move them around. Just gives you more pieces. It's like that pick. Keyshawn Vaughn, a running back, he gives them a little bit more, a little bit bigger guy in the backfield, a little bit more of a thumper, if you will. Can complement Ronald Jones if they like him. But yeah, so just those first two picks are solid, and then obviously I like the Ty Johnson pick. So that's another team who drafted I thought was very good. Because, I mean, when you need offensive line help and you get arguably the best offensive lineman at 13, it's hard to have a bad draft. But yeah, so again, there's other people that had good drafts. Yeah. And again, it's all relative, but these are other people that had good drafts. So, but after this next break, we're going to talk about some of the more interesting drafts, choices, and then also drafts as a whole from different teams this weekend. So, we'll discuss that right after this break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, on the more interesting side, I mean, we have to discuss this. I'm not 100% sure what the Packers are doing, or if they're trying to piss off Aaron Rodgers or not, because if they are, it may have very well worked. Because their draft is easily one of the more interesting drafts in the whole league. Again, I don't want to call it trash, because we don't know. And if Jordan Love turns out to be a future franchise quarterback, then it's not a bad draft, because, I mean, if you hit on that pick, then it doesn't really matter what you do with the rest of your draft, in all honesty, because that's going to make or break your team having a good quarterback. So if he's the guy that they hope he can be, then it's a great draft. But because we won't find that out for 3 to 4 years, that's kind of an issue for the Packers. But yeah, so then they trade up to get Jordan Love. They gave up like one pick. They moved up, I think it was 4 spots. Hey, you want to get your guy, get your guy. I'm always an advocate for that. If you have a guy that you like, go up and get him by almost any means. I'm not saying just give up your whole draft, but I mean, that's actually what the Saints did. They traded up, I think it was 3 or 4 picks or something. It was something crazy to get that tight end. Adam Trotman, I believe. Basically traded their entire draft. After picked their first 2 picks, they traded their entire draft to get this tight end. which was it's just kind of nuts when you think about it. But hey, if you want your guy, go get your guy. That's what I'm saying. And I think he was one of the higher rated tight end prospects, so I get it. So yeah, they traded to get to get up. They traded, like I said, they traded 4 picks to get. So they didn't have a pick again until the 7th round. And I mean, they don't have that many holes in their roster, so like I get it, but still, it's just like trading that many picks. It's kind of nuts. But yeah, so back to the Packers. Jordan Love pick is like whatever. It's like I said, it's around the same point in their career, at least age wise, that they drafted Aaron Rodgers to be the heir apparent to Brett Favre. Though, in fairness to that decision, Brett Favre had been doing the whole like I might retire, might not retire thing. So Aaron Rodgers hasn't been that way. He's kind of stated that he wants to play at least until he's 40. Though again, he's had some injuries in his career, so you never know. But hey, you want your quarterback of the future, you got your quarterback of the future. Cool. Though it was funny, I think it was early. I want to say it was earlier that day, but if not, it was like earlier that week or not that long before the draft. Aaron Rodgers was talking about how they hadn't taken a skill position player in the first round of a draft since they took since he's been drafted, which was like 2005, I think. So it's been like 14, 15 drafts they haven't taken a skill position guy, and he thought this was going to be the year because like all his receivers. They had they didn't have their pick because I think by the time they had went, there was 6 receivers that had already gone. So maybe that's part of the reason why they didn't end up trading. That they ended up trading for Jordan Love because they're like, all right, we already missed out on all the receivers. We don't have anybody else in the first round that we like. Jordan Love is a guy that's great in the first round that we like and think he could be the backup for now, and then obviously the successor to Aaron Rodgers in the future. But again, didn't get any receivers there. It's fine. Could have drafted T. Higgins. Could have drafted Michael Pittman. LaVisca Chenault, Denzel Mims, list goes on. But they chose not to. But that's not that bad. The problem is that they then proceeded in all their other picks to continue to not pick receivers. Especially when they are a team that has no one, really. Again, they have people, because people lined up at receiver this year. But they don't have anyone of note opposite Devontae Adams. And that was kind of their big thing. It was like, all right, we should be able to go in and get a guy to complement Devontae Adams. And they came out of the draft the same guys they came into the draft with, which, again, was their prerogative. If they have and that's another thing you find out a lot about in these drafts, is that a lot of teams are higher on the people in their own building than the fans are and maybe the media is. Because maybe they're higher on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or maybe they're higher on Alan Lazard or Equinemius St. Brown than like the average person is, which may be right, may be wrong. We'll find out shortly. But that could have played into the fact that why they didn't draft a receiver. Though, I think they said that they had a couple guys they couldn't get early on, and then they just didn't view it as necessary later on, which somebody made the point of, and I kind of understand in terms of that, is like, when you have, because generally speaking, your first 2 to 3 rounds are guys you think could potentially start for you year one. Anything after that is most likely a developmental guy, though, again, these guys end up working their way through, though with no rookie mini camps or OTAs or anything. It's going to be hard for these guys to get on the field week 1 for most of these teams, especially unless you're a bad team. And obviously the Packers were a game away from the Super Bowl, so they're not a bad team. But it's going to be hard for guys to get on the field, especially at receiver, when you're coming from a lot of like college-y offenses, though. I mean, not that the NFL isn't running college offenses, but again, it's a transition. So then, if you're drafting a guy in the 4th, 5th, well, not 4th, but like maybe 5th, 6th, 7th round, you're gonna have to develop him, and you may just be better off developing the guys in your own building, because again, they've been there, they've been in the NFL for a year at least, they've been with your team for a year at least. They're a step ahead than a rookie that's going to be coming in again with no real off season. So again, from that aspect, I get it. But at the same time, they trade up for Jordan Love. If there was a guy that they liked in the 2nd round or 3rd round that they could have drafted, maybe they should have. I'm trying to think, because I'm trying to see, when did Denzel Mims go? Not that I'm not a big Denzel Mims guy. Wasn't big, and a lot of people were high on him. Oh, he went before their pick. Wasn't sure. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest Denzel Mims guy. But again, he went at 59, and the Packers picked at 62. He was 62, so that's 3 picks ahead. They could have, if in theory, trade up for him if they really wanted to. Like I said, but that's their prerogative. They didn't have to. But it's just like, again, it is an option. But still, they could have picked somebody at receiver. And they didn't. And you were just like, you would think, alright, you want to get Aaron Rodgers some weapons, that's what he kind of needs, and try to appease your franchise quarterback, but they chose not to. So, hey, T.J. Brown also picked a running back, which they didn't need in the second round. Whatever. Especially a kind of a bruising running back, and the guy had a lot of workload in college. Again, ran a fast 40 for, like, I think what was he listed at, 250 in A.J. Dillon, but still a little weird. Then drafted a tight end. I mean, don't really know if that's the kind of guy they need. I like some of their other picks. I liked, like I said, I liked the O-lineman pick. They picked Jake Hansen, center from Oregon, and John Runyon Jr., guard, tackle, whatever I think he's going to play guard, from Michigan. Don't know how good they're going to be because, again, I don't judge O-line play, but I know the interior of the Oregon O-line was very good last year. I mean, their entire O-line was very good, especially run blocking. But hey, it could work. Though the issue with him is that the center, he ran like a 5.5, and that's kind of not the athleticism you want in this day and age in the NFL. But hey, teach his own. Maybe it'll work out for them. And I like the Kamal Martin pick, the linebacker from Minnesota. I thought he could be like at least something decent. Again, not that I'm an expert on linebacker play. I thought he at least could be something, and at the very least could be a special teams guy. So maybe that's a decent pick. But yeah, their draft was weird. Just again, no receivers is an odd one. Another weird. This one's less of a weird draft, more of a weird pick. Was obviously, I mean, arguably the most noteworthy pick of the entire draft. All 3 days, all 7 rounds. Was the Eagles, and then picking Jalen Hurts in the second round. Now, again, looking back on it, since I've had a couple days to reflect, if you are the Eagles, and you're like, alright, we have a quarterback who, though good, can get hurt. And we feel like we need to prioritize the backup quarterback position. Whether, again, don't know if this is their line of thinking, but just bear with me here. And that's what they think. Alright, then if you come to the draft saying, like, we want these quarterbacks, so we're not going to get Tua, we're not going to get Justin Herbert, we're not going to get Joe Burrow, fine. But I know supposedly they were really interested in Jordan Love too, which scares me a little bit. If I'm an Eagles fan, because then that means that they were, again, they didn't do it in round 1, thank goodness. But imagine if they took Jordan Love in round 1, that'd been a disaster. But if he would have fallen to round 2, then it's an option they might have traded up to get him, which would have been interesting to say the least. Again, part of the reason for this segment. But yeah, so you got Jalen Hurts, and you're just like, all right, we think he's better than Jacob Eason, we think he's better than Jake Fromm, we think he's better than James Morgan, all the other quarterbacks. We think he's the best one of the outside of the top 4, which, I mean, is a fair argument. Some people have him as QB5, QB4, QB6. He's like a little all over the place. But yes, if you think he's the best guy in terms of what your offense needs, especially with his running ability, that kind of can definitely add to the offense. And I know they have a lot of plays designed with getting Carson out on the move, and Jalen Hurts throws very well in the run. So it makes sense, though obviously not the same size, but he brings more speed. So, hey, it'll work out. But, yeah, so if you're like, all right, we want to come out of this draft with a rookie quarterback to be the backup, then you draft the best guy if you don't think he's going to make it there. And I'm not sold that Jalen Hurts makes it to their next pick was at 103, so 50 picks away. I'm not sure if they go Christian Fulton there, if they go Denzel Mims, they go Logan Wilson, they go a couple different ways, Jeremy Chin, the safety. There was a couple different options they could have went, but if they go that there, which maybe is more beneficial to them immediately and long term potentially, they don't get that quarterback that they want. Because Jake Fromm was not it. Jacob Eason at least has some tools, but again, a little inconsistent for me. But yeah, Jake Fromm is definitely not it. I think he's like average at best. Don't know. I could do a whole other segment on the Bills and why they took him as to be their backup, because him and Josh Allen could not be any more different. Don't know how they work. You're running two different offenses there in there. You would think at least try to get somebody with similar skill set, but to each their own. But yeah, didn't want any of those guys. And again, drafting a quarterback in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, if they even become a backup for you, that's surprising. With Jalen Hurts, at least you expect him to be a backup, and then in the interim, as they've talked about, there you can utilize him. I don't want to say Taysom Hill because he's not as big. But they can utilize him. They can put together a package for him to get him on the field. Utilize maybe some of those quarterback runs that they don't want to use with Carson because he's going to get hurt. And then also, in the future, if he does get hurt again, you have a good, in theory, backup. So, weird pick. Still not 100% certain it makes sense based on who was available for them at other positions on the board at that time. But from their standpoint, I can at least see the logic. Is like, if we want to get a good young backup quarterback and we think Jalen Hurts is the best, why risk him not being there? Because I don't know for certain who would have taken him, but I think a team could have taken him in the 2nd or 3rd round. I know different people, you ask different people, you hear different things, but it didn't sound like he was going to make it to 103, depending on who you ask. Just got seen, like, again, the athleticism is worth taking the risk on over a guy, like I said, over guys like Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason. This is, again, Jacob Eason's a little bit better athlete than Jake Fromm, but like from Jake Fromm is like just he'd be like your prototypical quarterback, like prospect, like 10 years ago, like tall, big, not going to make too many mistakes. Doesn't have the rocket arm, but not going to make too many mistakes. Should be able to run your offense efficiently, stuff like that. But there's nothing dynamic about Jake Fromm. He's just like, meh. At least with Jalen Hurts, it's like some things like, all right, the running ability, the throwing on the run, the stuff he's gone through in his career, like having, again, being at Alabama, being at Oklahoma, getting benched, having to come back the next year to win the SEC championship game, let's say going to Oklahoma, learning under Lincoln Riley, putting up big stats of that Oklahoma offense. And he's been through some things, and I can work with that. But yeah, that was definitely easy. And that's the funny part is that the rest of their draft is like relatively fine. The linebacker they picked in the 3rd round is like very raw. So that one's a little bit shaky. I don't know. 3rd round, you especially when you coming off the Hurts pick, you want to get a guy a little bit more production and not as much on this, like, you're not betting entirely on upside, but again, he's entirely athletic, and that's what the theme of the Eagles draft was. But yeah, the other picks they had, like they drafted the safety from Clemson, Kayvon Wiles, very solid pick. Many people thought he could potentially go earlier than the 4th, which is where he went. Jack Driscoll, very athletic guard, tackle, center, wherever he could end up playing. Very athletic, one of the better pass blockers from different things I've read. Gave up, I think, like 4 pressures in like over 1,000. Like it was some outrageous number from PFF, like the number of pass blocking reps he's had and the very little amount of hurries and pressure and stuff he's given up. Drafted a couple speedsters and John Hightower and Quez Watkins at receiver. Took Nigerian Prince from offensive tackle, Prince Tego Winogo from Auburn again, which is kind of funny. Two linemen from Auburn. But again, another guy who had who was coming off an injury, which is why he slipped so far. But everything else about him seemed like he should project to be a good, at worst, like 3rd tackle, which is what they need if they have faith in Dillard, and then Lane Johnson going to be there for at least a couple more years. In the meantime, it could be the swing tackle, which is very vital for them because Big V ended up starting a good amount of games over the course of his 4 years with the Eagles, including in the Super Bowl and on the run up to the Super Bowl. So they've learned that the 3rd tackle is very vital. And again, there's very few teams that have 5 good linemen, let alone good backup linemen. So if you can have the opportunity to draft a good backup lineman, especially at that point in the draft, it makes total sense. But yeah, the theme of their draft was speed, and they got it all over the field at every position. Basically, it didn't matter who they picked; they were at or near the top athletically at their position. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, the Jalen Hurts pick, had to talk about it. Like I said, thinking about it now, it makes more sense than it did on Friday when it happens. But I mean, that's easily one of the going to be the most noteworthy pick from this draft, and one that people are going to keep an eye on, because Eagles picking a quarterback in the second round when they have a guy they just paid $100 million to is definitely going to raise some eyebrows, to say the least. So the Eagles and the Packers definitely had two of the more interesting drafts. They weren't alone. The Patriots not picking a quarterback, which they said was not by design, so that's not a good thing. That means you missed out on all the guys you wanted. Was definitely another interesting one for me. But the Packers and Eagles definitely took the cake in terms of you got to think long and hard about what the thought process was as you went through those drafts. But it's over now. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, we got a long time between when people are actually going to get on the field. But again, it's just good to look at, and before you get all worked up over the grades and if your team got a bad grade, good grade, whatever. Remember, you can't really tell about these things until at least 2 years, maybe even 3 years down the line. Very few teams have a Saints draft in 2017 when you get 3 Pro Bowl caliber starters in year one out of a draft. And then another guy like Marcus Williams, who is not a Pro Bowl level, but still a solid starter. Most people remember him for the Minneapolis Miracle, unfortunately, but he's started for them for a couple years now. That doesn't happen in most drafts. So, again, remember to not overreact, good or bad, and just, like I said, wait and see how it all plays out. Speaking of seeing how things are going to play out, the NBA is talking about potentially opening practice facilities in states where restrictions are relaxed because of people maybe going back outside soon, and no longer doing the social distancing thing with the whole Rona still going around. Definitely interesting development. So we'll get into that and get into my feelings about it and why I think it may be a good or a bad idea. But yeah, we'll talk about all that right after break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
ESPN, and Adrian Wojnarowski. The NBA is reopening team practice facilities beginning on Friday, which I guess would have been the Friday that passed, because the article was from the 25th, so the Friday that passed. The practice facilities is opening on Friday for players in states and municipalities that are loosening stay-at-home restrictions amid the coronavirus pandemic, sources told ESPN. Players can return to team facilities in states such as Georgia for voluntary individual workouts as soon as next week, which allows for NBA organizations to start allowing players to return to training in a professional, safe environment. Safe being the operative word there. We don't know that, but we'll get to that. Teams will remain prohibited from holding group workouts or organized team activities, sources said. In markets in which more restrictive governance of stay-at-home orders remain in place, the NBA is telling teams the league will work with franchises to help find alternate arrangements for their players, sources said. The NBA's decision to reopen facilities based on loosening of local government policies isn't reflective of a new timetable for resumption of play this season, sources said. Commissioner Adam Silver and the owners still believe that they need more time for a clearer picture on whether, when, or how they could possibly resume the season. Many team executives have been clamoring for a chance to get players back into the facilities, which they believe to be among the safest possible environments around the pandemic. Again, debatable. On a conference call with general managers and Silver on Thursday, some GMs said they had players asking about the possibility of traveling to Atlanta to work out in training facilities with gymnasiums, an idea that concerned many team executives, as it should. If our players can travel and play at a 24-hour fitness in Atlanta, they should be able to have access to our team facilities, one GM told ESPN on Saturday. And let's see what else. Upon learning of the league's decision for some facilities to reopen, some GMs expressed concern about the safety of the idea. This is where I'm at. Especially given expert medical opinions have been against the idea of reopening businesses. Many players have left the markets in which their teams play during the shutdown, and it's expected that organizations with open facilities could let opposing players living locally use their gym on a limited basis. For example, many teams give permission for players living in Los Angeles, Houston, and Miami in the offseason to play pickup games at facilities for teams such as the Lakers, Clippers, and Rockets, because obviously those are popular places to play. Though, that's weird because Lakers and Clippers play in the same place. Oh, well, no, I guess, maybe their practice facilities are different. Scratch what I was about to say. During an appearance on CNN on Sunday, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban said he has not received guidance from the NBA about the reopening of some team practice facilities, but added, the minute it's safe, we want to try to get the guys back out there. And then obviously in regards to playing games without fans, he said that it's something that he's going to push for, and he believes the NBA as a whole has a moral obligation to do it. But yeah. So, opening team facilities. I do not like this idea at all. One bit. Just because. Well, for a couple of different reasons. One, I like it because, again, not everybody's open. So if we're talking about some states in the South, mainly just... Georgia's the big one. But I guess Florida, they said that what's it called? They said sports are an essential business, which I get because sports bring in a lot of money to many states. But yeah, so if we're talking about Georgia, whose again governor didn't know you could be asymptomatic until like 2 weeks ago. Don't know if we should be listening too much to him and being involved in states where he's in control, because again, he didn't even know the full scope of the disease until not that long ago, which is a problem in and of itself. Same thing with Miami. Not Miami, but with Florida. They haven't really closed down everything in total. The governor was a little slow to it. And even yet, and still, like beaches were still open for a while, restaurants were still open for a while. I have an aunt that lives down there, and she said that basically no one was social distancing like that at all, which, is a problem. But again, that's the part of the issue with this, is that many people aren't used to being told what to do with their lives, or how to live their life, and they don't know how to handle that. So they're acting out, and they're openly defying their government and their law enforcement, which should be frowned upon and should be dealt with, but nothing's really happening because the people want to make that money. So they're not going to necessarily kick you out of places or close places down because they can use the money. But again, I don't know if it's a good idea to be listening to states or doing things in states where they weren't really even social distancing in the first place. It seems highly dangerous. Number one. Number two, not every place is like that. So, alright, so say Georgia and Miami can, I keep saying Miami, Georgia and Florida can do that. California doesn't seem to be doing that anytime soon. New York isn't doing that anytime soon. Not that, the Knicks or Nets matter that much this year, but the Clippers and Lakers matter a lot. And I guess Sacramento as well. They don't matter as much, but Clippers and Lakers matter a lot. and they're not going to be doing it anytime soon. So I like how the NFL did it, which is very rare. That I like something the way the NFL does things more than the NBA. But they were doing it where you can't open until everybody else can open. It's like so that you can't they can't have everyone can have for the NFL everyone can have a virtual off-season program, but you're not allowed back into team facilities until everyone's allowed back in team facilities. So that means if Georgia and you can do it in Georgia and Florida now, but you can't do it in California until July, then no one's getting in until July. And I think that just it's for the sake of competitive balance, that seems fair. I mean, obviously, I don't want to, not obviously, but a lot of players have, a lot of elite players, not the common player, but a lot of elite players have hoops or courts or whatever in their houses, so they can do their own individual workout. They don't necessarily need the team facility to do that, but the average player doesn't, so they're not really getting the work in at this point in time right now. So this being able to go to team facilities would allow them to do such a thing. But with that, not everybody, unless you're going to have everybody congregate in out Atlanta, which doesn't seem smart. I guess maybe Houston too. I don't know. Texas is I don't know if they've been a little lax too, from what I've read, at least. But I'm saying so you have only certain states where this is able. So unless everyone's going to be in those states or in one of those states and do all the stuff there, how's it fair for Houston to be able to the players in Houston to be able to work out, but then now players on the Lakers or the Clippers can't do it because they don't have anywhere to go. It seems for the sake of competitive balance, it does not seem fair. But again, life isn't fair, so that is what it is. But it seems in terms of safety, it would make more sense. Once everybody's able to do it, then you could do it as opposed to bits and pieces here and there, but teach their own. And then also, I guess my third thing, just that they said it's the safest place. Is it really though? I know you're mainly just doing it individually. But if everyone's coming through there, then that makes it worse. I mean, you may be working out by yourself, but you're not the only person that's in that place. Same place, if you're going to, I guess not necessarily the same if you're going to a grocery store or whatever. But I know there was a picture of, I think it was somewhere in Georgia. They were doing there was a picture I saw of people social distancing while getting barbershops open. So I think it was in Georgia. But the barbershops are open back up. And obviously, no one's really been able to get a haircut unless you know how to cut your own hair. You're kind of looking a little rough right now. So I understand why you would want to get a haircut once things are open back up outside. But it's because you're social distancing and they only had one or two people in the shop at the same time. Alright, all it takes is one sick person to walk through there and now they can infect everybody. And again, since most people are asymptomatic, they won't even know that they've infected you or know that they even have it. So it's just because you may be in there by yourself does not mean that other sick people won't go through there at some point. It's not you're the only person that can go in there. If you're the only person in the facility, all right, then in terms of you're the only person that ever steps foot in the facility, all right, then you have a better chance of not getting infected. But if you're just the only person at the time, that doesn't, unless they're going to disinfect everything when you leave, or they're going to test your temperature when you come in. How are we going to know if people are sick or not before they get there? Just seems a little shaky to me. And like I said, it's just what's the rush? That's what I'm saying. If it's not gonna, it hasn't. They stated it didn't jump up the timetable. The fact they're doing this. So what is the rush? We're not getting back to basketball anytime soon. So what are we in the rush to reopen facilities for? Is my last thing. What are we rushing to do in these few states where you can? Because it's not even I don't even know how many states it is that are relaxing their stay-at-home restrictions, but it's not that many, and it's not a lot of the big ones. So again, what is the point? What are we trying to do? Because again, if it's not gonna, maybe it is, but they said it's not to help expedite the starting of the new season. Then what's the rush? In my opinion, what is the rush? What are we trying to get up to so fast? That is my opinion. It seems like it's gonna happen anyway, so it is what it is at this point. But yeah, it just seems kind of to me. It doesn't seem necessary right now. This doesn't seem necessary to me, at least right now. Though I get it, because not everybody has the access to training facilities now, or at least a court or like a good gym or whatever. But again, unless you're going to disinfect everything after a person or trainer or whoever leaves, plus you're going to check the temperature when they come in every time. If you're just letting people in the building, just let people in the building without taking the proper safety measures, then you might as well not even open it, because there's no way to make sure everybody's safe. And that's what should be most important during this time. Not how soon we get back to basketball, but like, is everyone going to remain safe and healthy if we do this? And I just don't know if that's other people are viewing it right now. It seems like they, like we mentioned, team executives have been clamoring for this, because again, the sooner they can get back practicing means the sooner they can get back to playing games and making the owners and people money. Then, it just, like I said, it just doesn't seem like the greatest idea right now. Again, the NBA's been on top of this. They've made a lot of good decisions when it comes to COVID-19. But this one, I'm not too certain about that. Because again, what is the rush? That's going to be my big overarching point, is what is the rush? What are we rushing back to get these facilities open for? To do what? Okay, they practice, but like, we're not the game. When are the games going to start? August at like July, August at best. That's like best case scenario. Like, there's no need to rush. There is no need to rush. But hey, we will see how this goes. So after we come back, we got one more segment here, and we're going to discuss the potential future at the quarterback position for the New Orleans Saints, because they made a couple interesting decisions. Not interesting, but they made a couple decisions at that position. This being Sunday, so we're going to talk about those moves that they made, and also what they can mean for the future of the Saints. So we'll discuss all of that right after this break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA, from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Podcast Network. So, the Saints, I'll just discuss, have made a couple of moves today to help add to, I guess you could say, their quarterback position, or just solidify their quarterback room, I guess is probably a better term for it. So, first, they decided to officially give an extension to Taysom Hill, who has resigned with the Saints on a contract, 2-year contract worth $21 million, 16 of which is guaranteed, which is a lot. A source told ESPN some see Hill as the heir apparent to Breeze, and though he has been a standout in a multi-purpose role, he has yet to establish himself as an NFL quarterback. I know Peyton said earlier this offseason that Hill has earned the opportunity to be their number 2. But he has made it clear that the Saints want to have 3 active quarterbacks ready to play on game day, so that they could continue to use Hill in his versatile roles as a runner, receiver, returner, special teams guy, whatever. But he's now officially back. I think he was on like a restricted free agent tender or whatever. So he's officially back now with a lot more guaranteed money. Like, this is like legitimate backup quarterback money. Or, I guess in theory, if this were like a receiver, if you were actually a receiver or something, then $8 million is really not that much. for a running back, $8 million is kind of a lot. But as a receiver, like H-back, tight end type of guys, $8 million is not really that much a year. Plus, added the quarterback aspect of it in. It's really not that much when you think about it. But for a guy like Taysom Hill, who is like decent at or decent to good at a bunch of things, but hasn't really solidified himself as like one true thing, other than like being a multi-purpose guy. I don't know what the value of being a multi-purpose guy is in the NFL currently, but that's what he is right now. So he got his money, so good for him. But to add to that, supposedly they also are in the works, or it seems like it's very close to happening if it hasn't officially happened yet. I haven't seen any official word on it, but it seems as if it's like unofficially official, if that makes sense. But it sounds like they're bringing in a former rival of the Buccaneers, Jameis Winston, to serve as their number 2 or compete for the number 2 job. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what his role will be, but he's coming on a 1-year contract. At the very least, he'll be able to come in and learn from Sean Payton and learn from Drew Brees, a la Teddy Bridgewater. And, I mean, we saw it happen to Teddy Bridgewater. He was there for 2 seasons, then was able to parlay, like, basically 5 games into a starting gig in Tampa, 3-year deal, average about $20 million a year. And Jameis, though he has, 5 years of starting experience, I believe, he still has some things to learn, obviously, as we've discussed on this podcast a lot. He threw 30 picks last season. Unacceptable. Can't have that. No, you can't win in this league with turning the ball over that much. Though, I mean, we're Philip Rivers, but, I mean, you can probably tell the difference between those two are, if you get what I'm saying. And especially as to why Philip Rivers given another shot while James has resorted to a backup role. But hey, it is what it is. It's, again, conversation for another day and another podcast. But yeah, so he came in and solidified that role to help, like I said, help learn the game, help better understand the game, because, I mean, Drew Brees is a guy that throws very little interceptions. Is very accurate with the ball. Though, who knows, maybe it'll be aided by, because I know James got his eyes fixed this offseason, so maybe that'll help change some things up for him. Maybe help him see the field a little bit better. But even aside from that, he can learn from Sean Payton, learn from Drew Brees, and better understand, again, how to literally see the field and how to understand coverage, just understand where people are going to be at, where people are going to drop off to, anticipate windows, all that fun stuff. So that's I understand from his perspective why he would want to go there and why he'd want to learn from those guys. But yeah, just brings the question, like, what does that mean? So, from the way I see it, it appears to me that the Saints still don't completely view Taysom Hill as a quarterback, which is, I mean, fair, because he's throwing, I think, 10 passes in his career, or at least in the regular season. If you include the postseason, still not that much more. But I think it's like 10 passes in the regular season or something like that. And in fairness to Taysom Hill, he was the best player on the Saints offense, at least, in that Minnesota playoff game. And if they let him actually throw the ball more, maybe things would have worked out better, because he was the only one that was able to complete a deep pass for the Saints in that playoff game. So there is that. But it's at this point in time, they don't view him as strictly a quarterback, I should say. They still don't view him strictly as a quarterback, so they want to utilize him in that multi-purpose role as the receiver, wildcat quarterback, maybe still have him drop back every once in a while, H-back, potentially running back, like wherever. They would still want to use him in that hybrid role. And because of that, that means that you need to have another quarterback on the roster in case something happens to Drew Brees, and you still want to use Taysom Hill in that way, that you have a guy that can come in. Because if you just have Taysom Hill, then once that happens, and if something were to happen to Drew Brees, then all that stuff's out the window. And now you have to scrap those Taysom Hill plays out the playbook. Which is unfortunate for them, because like obviously that's not a huge part of their playbook, but he's a guy that gets a lot of snaps for them. or at least a lot more than like most multi-purpose guys would get on most other teams. Maybe he would get on other teams. So yeah, I'm saying in that regard, they needed to get another quarterback, and based on guys that are out there, it was either between, because I don't Flacco now, but Cam would have maybe brought some more running aspects similar to what Taysom Hill could do, obviously from a much better version. But yeah, they decided not to go with Cam again. The injuries, fair. They decided to go with Jameis. So I'm saying Jameis again. At worst, he's like a low-end starter. That's like a worst-case scenario for James because we've seen that already. So we know what he is capable of, and that being 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. But we also know what he's incapable of, which is not turning the ball over currently. And thus the issue is that you can have Jameis, and you can get, if he gets hot for a couple games, you can win new games and you'll be fine. But then also at the same time, there's a chance he loses you games. Like Teddy Bridgewater, at least last year, wasn't necessarily going to lose you games. He may not have been the driving force in the win, but it wasn't going to actually lose you the game, though he tried to when he took that one really bad sack against the Cowboys and knocked them out of field goal range. Or almost knocked them out of field goal range. I don't remember exactly if he did or not, but I think he did knock them out of field goal range. But yeah, so very rarely is Teddy Bridgewater going to lose you the game. James Winston could very well lose you the game. So if they can coach some of that stuff out of him, then again they have a good backup, and potentially the heir apparent there if the things don't work out with Taysom Hill. And then if they do work out with Taysom Hill, and like the season goes well, whatever happens, Drew Brees rises up into the sunset, Taysom Hill, they give the keys over to him, then Jameis, it could maybe have rehabilitate himself to be able to get a starting job somewhere else. Don't know where somewhere else would be, because again, as I noticed, now a lot of teams more or less have their quarterback of the future. The only one that really doesn't is the Patriots, the Lions, potentially, depending on what happens with Stafford and all his injuries, and then supposedly the Steelers tried to offer him more money, but he didn't want it, which is fair. Steelers don't come with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, so there is that. But yeah, the Steelers could potentially need a future quarterback because you don't really know who's going to go with Big Ben. I think I said Big Ben, but Big Ben, and obviously Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were not it last year, so they needed a better option there, and James would have been that, but again, chose not to go there. But outside of that, there are already many other places that need maybe the Colts, but they did just draft Eason, so if they have faith in him, maybe the Raiders, because they have Derek Carr and Mariota, but there's no guarantee either of them is the guy in the future. So, like I said, very few places that don't have their guy, so there's not that many options for him. But hey, someone will take a flyer on him if he looks decent enough this season. So from his perspective, I get it why he'd do that, because best case scenario, he's the heir apparent in the Saints and doesn't have to go anywhere. A good scenario is that he can leave and go somewhere else, and worst case scenario, I guess he'll just be a backup for a couple years. And then again, Taysom Hill, similar concept. Best case scenario, he turns into a franchise quarterback. Worst case scenario, he's who he is now and is still just like the multi-purpose guy for the Saints. And then the Saints potentially have two options to get their franchise quarterback. Instead of just putting all their eggs in the Taysom Hill basket, now you can put it in a little bit there and a little bit in the Jameis Winston basket, so to hedge your bets just in case, because again, with Jameis, injuries are a concern, and with Taysom Hill, the lack of playing quarterback at the professional level is the concern. So, I said, at the very least, the Saints give themselves some options and some wiggle room, so they're not just, like I said, hamstrung to or pigeonholed to being forced to pick or place one guy in that position. They have some options, options are never a bad thing in life. So I can see why the Saints would want that. But yeah, it just gives it allows them to examine and see who the potential quarterback of the future could very well be. But yeah, we'll see how that plays itself out. Obviously, we got a long way to go into what hopefully will be a very good NFL season in September. Again, not getting my hopes that the season's going to happen, but I'm I just hoping that it does, because I don't know what I'm going to do if you go almost a full calendar year with no sports. It's going to be an absolute mess. But hopefully you don't have to go through that, so why even worry? But yeah, that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys for listening, as always. If you could please as well, if you could please, I just haven't said anything for the as well part, but if you could please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review, it'd be very appreciated, very helpful. See if you guys like, if you guys dislike all that stuff. If you could as well, subscribe to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure it's on top when we drop the latest stuff. Also, if you're on social media, we're on social media too. You can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And I almost forgot, but I didn't. An episode shout out to the essential workers out there. Again, risking their lives and their health and the health of their families potentially to make sure people like me and other people around the country are safe, even though there's people protesting their saying the coronavirus is a hoax and blah blah whatever. Don't worry about them. They're some people are just lost and they don't plan on being found. But yeah, for all you guys out there, you're doing great work. You're doing. I know you got a lot to deal with. You got a lot on your plates. So I just want to say that you guys are appreciated from one American that does in fact believe the coronavirus is a real thing. So yeah, shout out to them. But yeah, we can talk about the drafts. We can talk about the last chance doc. We can talk about the NBA Oden practice facilities. We can talk about what the future, who the future quarterback of the Saints is going to be. Who do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be Jameis? Is it going to be Taysom Hill? Is it going to be someone they draft next year? Who knows, honestly. Who knows? But yeah, that'll do it for me here today. I have been Chris Blades. I want to thank you guys for listening. As always, that has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.